Hey guys, welcome to Film My Watch List. I'm Richard Keeney, your host. Today I just want to do a bit of a roundup of all the films that came out in January that I didn't get a chance to properly review. So next we have The Darkest Hour, directed by Joe Wright, starring Gary Oldman as Winston Churchill. We have Kristin Scott Thomas as Churchill's wife. There's Ben Mendelsohn, who plays George VI very well. I love Ben Mendelsohn. It all takes place in the first few weeks of Churchill becoming PM during World War II. It'd be a great companion piece to Dunkirk, actually, because the events of Dunkirk take place at the same time. Now, I thought it would be quite a sluggish and slow biopic, a very prestigious, brilliant Oscar bait. Now, it is some of those things, but it's very cinematic as well. It surprised me with some of the shots that Joe Wright incorporated into the film. There's moments where it feels quite stagey and you can see that it's shot in a studio, but then there are some really beautiful visuals. There's a beautiful shot where a plane is going overhead and a child looks up while he's fleeing war-torn France, kind of puts his hand to his eye, and from his point of view we see him spotting the plane framed in his hand. He closes it like an iris and it's a perfect little cut to black. I love that. Some other little lovely visual flares throughout the film. The film is Gary Oldman's. It's just a fantastic performance of Churchill. He manages to get the whimsy, the inspiration, the kind of impetuousness of Churchill so perfectly. Now he's a controversial historical figure in some ways, stuff he's done in India and elsewhere, but he was a great leader, at least verbally. Like, he was amazing orator, amazing at speeches. We'll fight them on the landing ground, we'll fight them on the beaches. This speech is used at the end of the film as the kind of culmination of everything that's come before it, and it's very well done. There's some scenes in the House of Parliament that other directors may have made quite boring, or not being able to create any kind of drama or some really interesting cinematic flourishes, and Joe Wright does very well in those scenes. They're really involving. There's a scene towards the end of the film that I know some people might think is quite contrived. Looking back, I can kind of see where people are coming from on their idea of that scene. Now, for me, it affected me. Now I'm half English. I tried to keep that side on the down low. Living in Ireland for the last 20 years, and there's not a lot nowadays to be proud about being English. Definitely politically, anyway, with some things that are going on. But looking back towards World War II, I mean, there was a lot of colonial problems with the English and the British in the past. But looking back to World War II, it's refreshing to have some sort of patriotic pride. Not a big one for patriotism, but it works very well in this film. That it's just this kind of team effort of the whole population grouping together to, tell Hitler to fuck off, to defy Hitler, or to stand as one and unite. And it's very rousing and well done. Some people might feel it's sentimental. It is in some ways, but it definitely affected me, this one scene in particular. You'll know what I'm talking about when you see it. Darkest Hour is a very good film. Perhaps not as good as it could have been. The visuals, like I said, it's very cinematic. Some of them don't seem as cohesive with the more studio shot, chamber piece kind of backroom drama going on. Stephen Delane plays Halifax, someone that was touted to be the new Prime Minister after Neville Chamberlain, while the controversial Churchill took his place instead. Now Stephen Delane plays that part very well. Seems a bit of a snivelling kind of coward, I guess you could say, in some ways, but then he's also got some very well-founded fears about Britain falling into the hands of the enemy. He and Chamberlain really want to broker peace talks between Mussolini and Hitler and the UK, whereas Churchill defiantly does not want to. And that's the main kind of tension in the film, the back and forth between them. It's all very well done. It's a very well directed film. It could have been better. It's not quite as good as the likes of Atonement or even King's Speech for that matter, but it's definitely worth your time, and it's not what you think it is. I mean, on first glance it looks like this just typical kind of prestigious British historical biopic, but it is very good, and a very good it would work very well as a double bill to Dunkirk. I would give The Darkest Hour 3.5 out of 5. Next on to Coco, directed by Lee Unkrich, Pixar's new film, a visually stunning depiction of Dias los Muertos, the Day of the Dead in Mexico, where the tradition is to leave photographs of your family in your home, sprinkling petals to the graveyard, in the hopes that the spirits will come back. So there's like a togetherness for one day, this family remembrance, and remembrance is a big theme in the film. The main character Miguel wants to become a musician. The family has a strained relationship with music in the past. They come from a tradition of shoemakers. One of their ancestors ran off to be a musician, leaving the family behind, and was subsequently banished, as was music, from the household in the years since. We follow Miguel, who wants to defy his family and become a musician. He ends up in the land of the dead with some of his dead ancestors. His only way out is to be given a blessing by them to go home. Yet he wants to find a famous ancestor of his, this musician that left his family, and get a blessing from him so that he can become a musician back in the land of the living. And now it's Pixar. They're amazingly talented at pulling at the heartstrings. It's an emotional film. There's some beautiful uses of music, narratively, in the story structure, embedded in there. There's the song Remember Me, and it comes back a few times. By the time at the end, when it returns, there's so much attachment to character and arcs within that, and the eponymous character Coco, the grandmother of Miguel, that you can't help but shed a tear. Like, there wasn't a dry eye in the cinema when we were watching this last scene. Now, this is a beautiful film, visually stunning film. I can see maybe in the next 10 years or so these Pixar films and other animated films being recognized for their cinematography, where they're not now so much in. If you compare it to the likes of Life of Pi, Gravity, that are completely computer generated but can win things like Best Cinematography at the Oscars, Coco is stunningly shot. There's so many shots that look so real and tangible, like shots of guitar with a sheen on them, nice reflection. It all looks so, it feels like you could touch it. Like, it's really beautifully shot and lit. The land of the dead is stunningly depicted in light and colour, and it's so intricate and beautifully rendered. What I will say is that the story of Coco left me somewhat wanting. Now, this is partly because such a high standard has been set by Pixar in their previous films. Lee Unkrich, the director, has directed Toy Story 3 in the past, like a beautiful sequel, like this Up, WALL-E. I love WALL-E. Finding Nemo. Everyone loves Pixar. This is by no means on the same tier of Cars 3 or Brave, but then again, following on from Inside Out, it's just, it doesn't seem to, like, it does emotion as well as emotions for emotions were done in Inside Out, but the story just, it seems quite predictable. And I know it's a kids movie, but I feel like it could have added a bit more narrative flair that wasn't quite there. All in all, a very good film, hugely popular. I'm sure people have seen it already, but if you haven't, definitely worth checking out in the cinema on a huge screen. It's a beautifully made film. I'm going to give Coco 4 out of 5 stars. So last, not least, Steven Spielberg's The Post, starring Meryl Streep, Tom Hanks, Bob Odenkirk, Sarah Paulson and Carrie Coon. Jesse Plemons is in there as well, Michael Stuhlbarg. It's a stacked ensemble cast. I enjoyed The Post. I would compare it to the likes of his Bridge of Spies, very prestigious on the surface, maybe a little bit contrived, a bit too convenient in its timing. I mean, it comes at a time where there's a lot going on with journalism and presidential power, much in the way that this film follows Nixon and the release of papers that would indict him for his treatment of the Vietnam War and his predecessors. It seems very convenient. It's very timely, almost to a fault. The way I say that is it just seems a bit rushed. I've seen comments online that describe it as Steven Spielberg rolling out of bed, calling his best friends, and let's make a movie. It seems like Josh Singer and Liz Hannah, screenwriters of Spotlight, who won an Oscar for that film, write the post. It's a very competently made film. I mean, it's Spielberg. You can't go wrong with Spielberg, even if it's a slightly subpar Spielberg film. Meryl Streep is very good in it. She's always great. Tom Hanks is very reliable as always, brilliant actor. Some people have raised issues with his accent being a bit dodgy. Bob Odenkirk I really liked in the film. Carrie Coon has a nice moment. Sarah Paulson is a very good actress, and I love her in the O.J. Simpson American Crime Story. But her character is used more as a narrative tool. There's one scene in particular where she describes the bravery of Meryl Streep's character, the owner of the Washington Post, in choosing to publish these controversial papers that the New York Times have been stopped from doing by the Supreme Court. And so Meryl Streep's character is risking her job, risking the legacy of her family company. And this scene by Sarah Paulson is just, it's a bit too convenient. There's a lot of on-the-nose moments. Another one in particular, Meryl Streep leaving the courthouse, going down the steps and passing a row of women with admiration in their eyes. She's a great feminist character. I mean, very strong and, yeah, inspirational. But it's all presented in a way that we're expected to think this no matter what. And if it was done with a bit more subtlety, I think I'd have more respect for its approach. But even with that scene when she's going down the steps, there's a ray of sunshine on her. It's all very angelic in a way, and it's, I don't know, a bit too on the nose. And I think Steven Spielberg kind of over-directed the film slightly. The blocking is perfect, but to a fault again. Like it's all very well composed, and it kind of loses any sort of claim to realism or authenticity in the process of doing that. It's a good film, definitely worth your time, but I don't see it winning any of the Oscars it's been nominated for, and it kind of causes me to think, why was it nominated? Why is Meryl Streep getting Best Actress nominees? She's very good in it, but it seems that no matter what she's in, she'll get a participation Oscar nomination, where another actress that hasn't been as well established as Streep should probably be there instead. I mean, like, Streep's had over 20 nominations at this point. It's a bit... Anyway, that's the Oscars. Yeah, The Post, I would give 3 stars out of 5. Worth your time, give it a watch. On Sunday, I am going to be seeing Loveless, directed by Andrei Zivotintsev, a director of Leviathan, and this film, The Banishment, which I haven't had a chance to see yet. I'm going to try and watch this a Friday or Saturday, because when I see Loveless, there's going to be a Q&A by the director, and I'm really excited to potentially maybe get an autograph. Maybe it won't happen, but I really want to ask him a question, and I can't think of anything that isn't stupid. Leviathan is an amazing film that I loved, and I might ask him a question about that. But if there's any fans of Zivotintsev watching, just leave a comment, maybe with a suggestion of a question you think I should ask him. I will tell you if I choose your comment, and I will either try and get a picture with Zivotintsev if possible, or if that's impossible, I will recount what happens in my next video. Anyway, thanks so much for watching. The subscribers are really growing rapidly, and I can't thank you enough for that. We're nearly at 350. I'm going to be putting a lot more effort into uploading more frequently now that I have new editing software. Thanks so much for watching. There's going to be some movie lists in the next few days. The next podcast should be on Shape of Order. If you didn't see the podcast that I did with David Devoy, my friend, who also participated in the All the Money in the World podcast, we did 3 billboards outside Ebbing, Missouri yesterday, and I think we came up with some interesting discussion on the film. And so you can see that by checking out the link now on screen. Thanks so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video. Thanks guys. Bye.